Hello, hello. Hello, folks, friends and neighbors.
Found the
We are
man
live from Dysfunction Junction with Daniel and Zack.
in Zacharoni.
Yo, yo.
Yeah, so Zach and I always talk, like after we do videos, we just sit down, chop it up, and he told me something that blew my mind. It blew my mind. It was like I'm always learning something new about Zach. So let's just get right into it, man. Let's not waste any time.
Yeah.
Midnight Productions. How was, I guess, real quick, how was life around that time where you met dude? We don't got to say his name.
Um, it was
Like
I
pre-prison, after prison, or
I was just going to Phoenix to get reacquainted with my daughter for a couple weeks, and my wife lived in some apartments, and I went there to just reacquaint, and I was going to spend a couple weeks there, and I ended up staying. And she had a neighbor that was a pretty friendly dude. Um, I just happened to run across, and uh, he had an apartment there. That's how it was. He was a big uh, wig in the Midnight Productions thing, and I didn't even know what it was. I
this
had
was
no
in
clue.
Phoenix?
Huh?
Was this in
Yeah,
Phoenix?
yeah. It
Okay,
was
okay.
in Phoenix.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he was a big wig. How'd you guys start talking about it?
Well, I first heard it when I called his phone, and he'd be like Midnight Productions, leave a message, and I had no idea what it was, no clue,
Around
you
what
know.
time was this? Like early 2000s?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it was.
Okay. Man. Yeah, I don't even I think I've heard of this maybe like a few years ago, a couple years ago.
Yeah,
Just from like interviewing a few different people.
yeah,
They mentioned it. Um
yeah. He became a friend of mine. We hung out quite a bit, and he became a good friend. I was oblivious to the whole thing. I had no clue what it was,
yeah.
what it was about. I knew he was in the escort business, so to speak. And
Sounds just like a movie company, huh? Like
yeah,
if you don't even know anything about it, Midnight
sure
Production
does.
sounds like
Yeah,
a movie company.
that's what it
I
was to
guess
me.
in a way, in a twisted way, it is,
Hmm.
because I've heard all kinds of crazy stuff about it, and
Yeah, and like I said, I never tried to get involved or know anything from him. I mean, I hung out with him for quite some time, maybe a year and a half off and on, and I knew they were involved in something. I just didn't know what.
mm,
It wasn't my place to be asking,
yeah,
and then come to find out later, years later after the whole ordeal, long after I've seen him, I come to find out more about the Midnight Productions thing. Um, he was something else. My girlfriend really tripped on it. She goes, Zach knows a real pimp in Phoenix. He introduced me. I a real pimp.
what were like some of the things that you, I guess, started seeing or that blew your mind? Like,
Well, I just, you know, I, I just started to pick up things, along the way. I mean, I knew there was something going on, but I wasn't sure what. What blew Allie's mind mostly was the big shag red carpet in the house, and the pictures with and his girls,
mm,
you know, the big gold chain and the velvet red robe
wow,
on, and they'd be all over him as ladies.
damn. Did they look happy?
He had
The girls?
professional pictures. Yeah, for the most part,
Yeah,
these girls. I mean, he took care of them.
yeah.
The
They
ones
needed
in
to.
his spot.
They needed to stay well, right? To
Oh
work,
yeah,
I guess,
oh yeah,
depending on what they were doing.
yeah. And he took care of their needs.
Yeah.
He took care of their needs. It was a basic same thing as you know. I just figured he was a pimp and he was involved in that business.
Yeah.
But come to find out,
I've heard some wild stuff like the the snuff films. I've never seen one, but that's just like what I heard. Um, and this is like through people I've interviewed. Frickin', I've heard like there'd be vans just cruising throughout Phoenix and quote unquote um, taking girls. You know, I imagine it was like by force or whatever, but it's just
Yeah,
what I heard and stuff.
yeah.
But
Allie, my ex-girlfriend, and her friend got taken.
yeah,
Yeah, they were gonna do something like that, and Allie got away, and her friend didn't.
in Phoenix.
Yeah,
Okay. Man,
yeah.
I wonder if it was like part of the same group type thing, or I
I
don't
would
know.
have never took my girl around there
Yeah,
if I would have known. I never thought about it. Like I said, I was oblivious to everything.
yeah,
You know, he just, I, I was involved in things that he was interested in, and
like what? Like
well,
without
like
getting too graphic.
just money making adventures.
Okay,
Uh, money making things. Nothing too off the wall.
traveling or something.
Yeah,
A little bit of this.
just some little bit of this and that, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, that's a trip, bro. There's like documentaries on that thing.
I mean, I wonder what he's doing today.
Yeah, yeah. It's like from the videos I've seen on it. There's like documentaries on it too. From like there's big like filmmakers and YouTubers that travel to Phoenix just to document and speak to different people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and from the stuff I've seen, like
It's
these,
based out of Phoenix, then.
yeah,
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 I didn't know that, but that's where I met him.
yeah. Next time we have some time, I'll show you a few minutes of a video on it,
Mm-hmm.
and but it's crazy, bro. Like people travel to Phoenix to document and like interview, you know, not specific, but like girls that were a part of it, and that these women just seem shook, dude. Like it had it from hearing them speak and watching them, it sounds like they just had a wicked nightmare.
They're scared.
A traumatic nightmare. Like every time they talk about it.
Yeah, they're scared.
And
Permanent.
yeah, like it's just wild, dog. Like I've always wanted to interview, you know, somebody. I'm sure if I was in Phoenix, I'd be hearing all about it. But I've always wanted to interview some, you know, at least a girl that has seen some stuff, obviously traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
What was like the craziest experience? Because I'm sure it wasn't even as well known. It just probably just some sort of operation to you. Like, what was the craziest
Well,
thing that you could speak on?
really, they had a pool table in the apartment.
Mm.
The apartment was a trap house. It was just a house for extracurricular activities or whatever that they rented. They didn't live there. And when he was there, he was working or whatever. And I would go over there, and there wasn't no white people whatsoever, that went there. And, he called me flag. And fucking, him and his partners would be up there shooting pool and partying with the ladies and stuff, and I'd go up there and they'd let me in. Hey, flag, what's up? Hey, and they would trip on me. They're like, who's this?
Yeah.
Wow, because I didn't fit in.
Yeah.
But they let me in. They welcomed me. And they were cool. I mean, it was just that kind of a scene. You know, he took me with him one time to,
Yeah, put the candle.
have a talk with somebody.
The candle just make
And
the.
I was a lot bigger and more influential.
Mm,
And he asked me, you come with me and have a talk with someone? And I said, yeah. And I went with him, and I could tell that it wasn't no kid play
yeah.
or whatever. It ended up not happening, but.
Would there be like girls sleeping there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He kept certain girls at his house always,
Mm.
and others would come and go, but I didn't I didn't see nothing that I really shouldn't have seen.
Yeah.
I seen things that made me wonder, but
Mm.
I didn't know.
Yeah, and
Like
it
I
was none
said,
of your business too.
that was none of my
None of your
business.
business to be asking
Yeah,
questions like,
and
bro, what?
I wouldn't, like I don't know the real dude's name, and I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
never known it. I knew him how I knew him, and that was it. And I knew him from the name I knew, and you know, uh, it was just, they had money and they had things going on. I could tell that,
Yeah, yeah.
you know.
How was the vibe of the girls there, the women?
Um,
Like happy atmosphere, or
Sometimes, not always.
yeah?
No,
Did they look like they didn't want to be there, type thing, or
sometimes,
yeah,
sometimes not.
yeah? Probably just depends how they
I
felt.
just figured they were working and
Mm-hmm.
whatever,
That's what they did, huh?
they got themselves into. You know,
Yeah,
I had no part of it. I just showed up on the sidelines.
yeah.
And I was welcome to see what I could see, and that was it. And like I said, I didn't know about what they were about. I had no clue. I only found out years later, and I was like, wow. I wonder if
Yeah.
I was like playing. Looking back on it, did they almost like take my girl or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that? Could have happened. I mean,
What
I would have
was?
never taken her around them.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend would tell me those guys are, holy, that's where he's from. That's what he's up to.
Mm-hmm.
They're not good dudes. My girl would tell me,
Yeah. She
they're
sensed
not.
it.
Yeah, they're not fucking what you really want to
I'm
hang
sure
with.
they probably would have tried to get her behind your back, like sell her a dream
Mm-hmm.
type thing. That I'm sure they don't care. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying they did, but like who knows? Anything's possible, bro. Throw some cash or throw a big sack in front of her, like, hey, what's up? Sell her a dream type thing. That's wild, bro. Yeah, that is wild.
Yeah. And like I said, it's quite a few years ago. You know, he trusted me. He trusted me, and he kind of took me in. It wasn't my neighborhood. I wasn't from there. There was things that I was trying to do that I couldn't do because I didn't know people, and he could help me. And then there's things that he wanted to do that I could help him with. Not really all too legal or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
nothing insane.
Yeah.
Nothing, nothing like what I heard going on.
Yeah. Part of the
Later
crazy stuff.
with those guys.
Yeah.
Like I said, it wasn't. Um, there wasn't no.
It was probably just like the beginning of
Yeah.
whatever he had going on, because that thing is like
Hmm.
uh, I don't know if it's like an urban legend, but like that kind of a big deal. I wish like when I drop you off, I'll let you watch part of a video so you can see
Hmm.
how much of an effect it had on Phoenix and stuff. I don't even know if it's going on. Um, yeah, dude, it's some wild stuff. Um, I guess we'll finish off with like how'd you guys part ways, or how was it when you
Um,
last saw him?
I took a couple trips on the bus with him, and like he wouldn't sit with me, and I had to act like I wasn't with him and stuff, and I would take packages or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and
So
be
you
on
just
my own. He trusted me, like I said,
mm-hmm.
and he would let me make money, and
It's a
what
trip how you kind of meet somebody and you kind of trust them, huh?
yeah, yeah, he
You
trusted
know?
me right away. He really did.
Yeah.
Um, he was a good dude. For over, all I could say is he was a good dude. At least I thought so.
Mm-hmm.
And mm, if
Sure, he's friendly, but just doing what he does, doing what he knows.
mm-hmm.
And then when you guys parted ways, like what happened with that? Um,
You know what? I never parted on bad terms with him or
yeah.
anything like that. I ended up. What happened is I went to jail. And my wife ended up dying,
Mm,
and then when I got out, I seen him one time.
mm,
And he told me some things about my wife that really upset me.
okay.
Like as far as her health and everything, she reminded him of a skeleton with hair, with red hair, and stuff like that. And it was just really sad.
Just her health declined.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Was it cancer or what?
It was liver failure.
Okay. Damn.
Um, and he just, that was it, man. But yeah, it's he was, that's the last time I talked to him. He was telling me some things about her and everything, and he was like really sad for me and everything. He had compassion. He was a good dude, you know. I wouldn't have thought back then that they were up to no crazy stuff or anything,
Yeah.
but you never know. Maybe he wasn't too, maybe
Yeah.
he was just involved in certain things. I don't
Maybe it
think
just
so.
evolved, and maybe someone took over, or who
Maybe
knows?
maybe because that might have been when it first started.
Yeah.
Because I thought I was thinking back then whenever they would say that on the news, I
Mm-hmm.
would say, oh man.
Oh, you saw it in the news?
Well, no, not the news, but oh, what am I saying?
Word on the streets type shit.
Yeah, uh, like,
Word
um,
of mouth.
yeah, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Um, I just looking back on it, I see the clues now. Like the things that stood out.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that I was, maybe tampering in an area that I shouldn't have been in.
Mm.
I just happened to meet somebody outside the apartments, and they I was trying to do something, and they could help me, and so you know we mess around in this world, and we find people along the way. You know, we never know about them.
That's wild.
You know,
You're gonna trip out when you see these videos.
yeah.
Yeah. It's wild, dog. The testimonies and shit.
Hmm.
But
I would be afraid to say anything specific or talk
yeah,
about
I get it.
anything.
I
Like
get it.
even if I knew dude's name or anything, I would never say it.
Yeah. I don't put names on these
Yeah,
videos.
and I never would implicate no person.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't
Like
put names on
like
these videos.
I wouldn't know him from Adam if I seen him today.
Mm.
I probably would, but
Yeah.
I know that he was a friend to me.
Yeah.
He was, and he trusted me, and I wasn't his type of person.
Mm.
You know, I was a white boy. His friends would laugh their asses off when they would go. I would go up there when they were playing pool and having their little parties and
You
stuff.
stand out.
Yeah, they'd be like,
Do you
"Oh
have long hair?
man, yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah, oh yeah, I did." And, they
Yeah,
would
like he
they
knew
would
what
be
he
like,
could use
"Damn,
you
Sammy."
for. He knew what, not use you for, but he knew how you guys could help each other out and do a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of business, behind the scenes type shit.
Mm-hmm.
But right
Yeah.
on, man.
Yeah.
Well, appreciate the story, dude.
No sweat.
It's always that's intriguing, like subject,
Yeah.
just from like what I've seen and
Yeah.
on YouTube and like from what I
I'll
heard.
tell you what. He was not forgettable.
Yeah.
You know.
You have charisma,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
charm.
He
Yeah.
was eccentric person. You could tell. He had a bunch of kids. I remember all over the place. Whole
Mm.
bunch of them. Like 10 or 11 of them or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was paying child support. I'd ask him for something. He'd be all flag. He'd be all. I got 11 kids to feed, man. And I'd start laughing. You know,
Man.
he'd be all, well, you think it's some kind of joke? 11 kids to feed,
Yeah.
man. Dang. But he was a good dude, and it just goes to show you, you never know. I think this might have been in the beginning of it. Or he
Hmm.
might have even been like one of the founders of it.
Yeah.
Be, and it might have taken a different direction.
Hmm.
I can't see him doing that,
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, but then again, you never know.
It's probably just some sort of small operation that evolved into
Yeah,
something else.
yeah, and money does weird things. It changes
Hmm.
people and makes people change what they're about too.
Money, dope,
Yep,
women.
yep, exactly, and that's what it was all about. and rock and roll, and from, you know, we were young
Yeah.
and full of spunk.
That's
You
how that
know,
underground world goes, man.
yeah,
You know?
yeah, exactly. I didn't even know I was dabbling in it, and I
Yeah.
was walling right around in it.
Yeah.
You know, I had no clue. But he was a good dude to me, and he was a friend. I could honestly say, you
Yeah.
know, and I just, you know, if I could see him today, I wouldn't have no problems
Yeah.
talking to him or anything. He's a good guy, you know, for the most part, from what I understood.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't fear him or anything, but I should have, you know. And I never thought,
But you
for
didn't know
even,
what to fear, you
I
know?
never thought even for a second that
Yeah.
somebody might take my girlfriend or something, you know,
Hmm.
like, and
Yeah, you got to hold on tight in places like
yeah,
that, you know?
it could have easily happened. I mean, I took her right in the mix of things,
Because
you
the
know.
money, the dope, and the chains, like,
Mm. Oh
kind of
yeah,
got to hold her tight, you know what I mean? Around
yeah,
situations like that.
yeah.
But, right
Yes,
on, man.
sir.
Was it a
Mm.
trip to think about,
Yeah,
like that time?
yeah,
Yeah. Right on, brother.
yep.
Well, yeah, like, appreciate the story.
Uh huh.
It's just like another chapter of Zack that we didn't even
Yes.
know. And
Oh, there's a whole bunch of it.
Yeah,
I mean, I can, we can see. I should have written a book. I could have. I could have written a book. I grew up in this game and in this whole thing. Kind of was raised by it, you know.
yeah,
And I went a lot of different places, you know, on the bottom and on the top and everywhere in between, you know. And there was a lot of things I did, and a lot of stories I could tell, whole bunches of them,
yeah.
you know. Very interesting, really. You know, I could honestly say that I wasn't. I've definitely been around the block, and I've definitely seen a lot.